Hello, friends, and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I'm your host. And on today's episode, I'm talking with Alex Shultz, who is the winner and new FKT holder of the Arizona Trail Race 800 that he just completed about 5 days ago. Alex set a new record time of 9 days, 5 hours, and 43 minutes, which was good enough to beat the fastest known time that was set in 2022 by Nate Ginzton. Now, the route has changed a little bit from 2022, and we are going to talk about that in today's episode. Now, Alex is no stranger to the AZT. In fact, he won the 300-mile version of this race last year. And prior to that, his first ever bikepacking event was the Colorado Trail Race in 2019. So Alex has been a member of our community for a little while now. He's entered some big races and had some really big results, and it was awesome to talk to him today on the podcast. I just want to say congratulations to everybody who finished on the AZT this year. It was really fun to watch, really entertaining, but there were a lot of storylines that were taking place. A lot of people finished their Triple Crown attempts this year and were successful. And so just want to say congratulations to everybody on an incredible year of bikepack racing. It's been fun to watch, and hopefully we'll be able to tell some more of the AZT stories before the year is out. Now, you're going to hear me mention it in today's episode, but I am going to be doing an ITT of the AZT 300 next year, and at the same time, Brett Stepanek is going to be doing an ITT of the 800-mile version of this race. And guess what? We're going to be inviting some friends, i.e. you. So if you're interested in taking on the AZT and you would like to join Brett and I next year, I'm going to be releasing information about that after today's episode, so stay tuned for that. Now it is time to thank the people that made today's episode possible, starting with our latest batch of patrons. Unfortunately, we didn't have any new patrons this week, so I'd like to thank the 316 patrons that we do have that support our little independent podcast. We appreciate every single one of you. And if you enjoy these episodes and would like to help support this work, you can find out more over at patreon.com/bikesfordeath. Now, today's episode is also brought to us by my friends over at Lectric eBikes. And let me tell you what, I am absolutely in love with my new Lectric eBike. Whether I'm going on a quick trip to the store or just taking an evening cruise to clear my head after a long day, or for 100 other reasons, I find myself reaching for this bike time and time again. And now I want one for my whole family. Which makes me wonder, where would you go for the holidays if you and your whole family had a Lectric e-bike? Well, I'm excited to tell you that Lectric eBikes is making it easier for you to get an e-bike this holiday season because holiday savings are already here and Black Friday deals are happening now. So for a limited time, you can enjoy $100 off e-bikes and up to $450 in free accessories. And one of my favorite features about these bikes is that they are built with convenience and utility in mind. So getting started on your Lectric e-bike adventure is easier than ever. Your Lectric e-bike ships free, comes fully assembled, and is foldable for easy travel and storage wherever you go. But wait, there's more. Lectric eBikes just announced their new X-Peak that comes in 2 different models and is available for pre-order right now. The X-Peak is an all-terrain e-bike that's equipped to take you off-road and encourage you into the unknown. Get hundreds of dollars in free accessories with any Lectric e-bike purchase this holiday, including America's best-selling e-bike, the XP 3.0, and the new X-Peak. Visit lectricebikes.com to find the Lectric model for you. That's LECTRICE bikes.com. And if you use the link in the bio, Lectric eBikes will send Bikes or Death a little something for the referral. So use our damn link and then go ride your damn e-bike. Our next partner is AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it literally every day. And I gave AG1 a try because I know that Andrew Huberman supports it and recommends it and uses it. And I trust Andrew Huberman. If you don't know Andrew, he has another podcast called the Huberman Lab. I highly recommend it. He is a neuroscientist, and he really breaks down complex neurological and biological and physiological concepts and makes them understandable and relatable to people like me and maybe like you. And I've really come to follow him and respect him as a source of good information. So whenever I heard Andrew recommends it and he uses it, I was like, okay, I need to check this out too. Now, I drink AG1 every day before my workout, and it makes me feel like I'm actually doing something good for my body and I'm giving it the nutrition that it needs. We talk a lot about nutrition for bike touring and bike racing, and finding quality foods en route can be challenging to say the least. May I recommend AG1 travel packs for the nutritionally deficient bike packer on the go? If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1 year of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/bikes-or-death. That's drinkag1.com/bikes-or-death to take control of your daily nutritional insurance. Well, ching, 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 the bills have been paid, and now it is time to get to my chat with Alexander Shultz. One thing I love about this interview is that it takes place while he's in his van. My chat with Alex is up next, but first, let's have Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes or Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
Okay. And you go by Alex and not Alexander?
I go by Alex. Sometimes people call me Alexander, but yeah, or my coaching name is Big Al, but Alex primarily.
Oh, I so badly want to call you Big Al. I like that. Well, Big Al, Alex, and Alexander, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for joining me today. It's exciting to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, like right off the bat, congratulations winning the AZT 800 and setting a new FKT. And since I haven't had a chance to congratulate you since we're meeting for the first time, also congratulations on winning the AZT 300 last year. Yeah, man, you're doing really well on this course. How do you feel about how you did this year?
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated, and I appreciate you following along during the race too.
Oh yeah,
I really like this course.
It was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's what I can gather from talking to people. But everybody said it was an exciting race. A lot of records were broken. A lot of people put down some amazing efforts out there this year.
Yeah. And so it's even more of an exciting year to come out with the win, really, but not to diminish anyone else's accomplishments because, yeah, it's just like a record-filled year on the AZT. It was hard not to watch it.
Right. Yeah. I had so many good experiences out there with the other racers, and I've raced multiple races with everybody out there. So it was just great to see everybody out there, and we kind of all put each other in good spirits and communicate back and forth. And it's just a really special thing to be able to share it with so many other awesome people at the same time that are doing awesome things.
Yeah, it really is. It looks like a super amazing community around, bikepacking in general, but also and including the AZT communities, especially seems amazing. So has the win and the FKT settled in at all for you? You've had a few days to process it. Has it soaked in at all?
Yeah, I mean, right. At first, when I finish, it's like, yeah, it hasn't really soaked in. I'm surrounded by Wyatt, bikepacking.com, and other friends that are there, and
Yeah.
we're just chatting like it's another day. But yeah, once you kind of leave all that and really process it yourself, it does feel pretty dang good. It feels a little different. Have time to process it.
Yeah. So I want to take a moment just to, because we haven't met before, and to introduce you to the audience. I'm curious. I know you're from you said Minnesota. Is that what you said?
Michigan
Michigan. I'm so
originally.
sorry.
Oh, you're
Uh,
good.
is that where you're from?
Yeah. I grew up in actually lower Michigan. There's two peninsulas, right? And then got out of there, went to college in the Upper Peninsula, and I own a house up there now out of Marquette, Michigan. But all through my whole life, I've been spending time in Colorado, and I'd say half of my life has been spent in the Colorado mountains and half in Upper Michigan.
Mm.
Um, and whether that be for the skiing, the mountain biking, whatever. So through mountain bike racing in Michigan, I discovered Colorado probably a little before high school and got into the whole Colorado mountain bike scene. And it didn't take long before I was introduced into the bike packing events. One of my friends actually got me into the CTR, the Colorado Trail Race, was kind of how the whole thing started. I just feel super passionate about Colorado and the Colorado Trail, and that whole passion, I guess, for the mountains and spending time in them on specifically the Colorado Trail, which is just by far my favorite. Every time I'm out there, I've been enjoying the trail, even if I'm 500 miles into the race.
Yeah.
And it did pretty well the first one I did, and it was like, well, this is really cool.
When
But
what year was
whatever.
that?
2019 was the first CTR that I entered during
Was
the
that your
start.
first bikepacking race?
Yeah, like second time ever bike packing, like second time I ever spent an overnight on a bike. Like really had no idea what I was getting into.
Oh, that's so
Um,
wild. That's a
yeah,
gnarly race to take on for your second event and or your second bikepacking trip and your first race. That's like gnarly. How did you do? You said you did well.
it was like 10th or 12th place somewhere in there, like a high 5 day finish.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it was I considered it well for my first time. A high 5 day finish isn't that great, um, but for the first time, I was pretty happy with it.
Oh, heck yeah,
Um,
dude. Just
and that
finishing it,
kind
man,
of
is a huge accomplishment.
yeah, that kind of sparked the whole bike pack racing ultra distance passion, I guess, which is really the way I've been leaning recently in
Yeah.
the whole bike racing scene. Um, and I just love the course. So of course, the next year was it 2020. I don't know if there was a mass start. That might have been the COVID year.
Right.
So I think I did an ITT as a Denver start and lowered my time a few hours, whatever. Um, and one year I skipped it, or I did a mass start in 2021, skipped it in 2022 to do the Breck Epic. I did an ITT instead.
Hmm.
It was Breck Epic and that it was kind of the same day. And now this year, I kind of had some asthma breathing issues out there that took me out,
Hmm.
and I think I got that resolved. But we'll see when it happens next year.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll find out.
I was
So,
pretty bummed about this year.
you said that you're kind of living in your van right now. I'm curious, like if you're a work remote person that's able to travel around and do these events, or how you're able to kind of work in a little bit of that work life balance or work life race bikepacking balance.
Yeah, it's all a huge balance all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am an engineering based job, civil structural engineering. And I was actually working for a company based out of Marquette, Michigan, when I took off the first time when COVID happened, and nobody was required to be in the office, and that's just kind of how it stayed ever since. And then last winter, I was actually coaching Team Summit in Colorado ski racing, and so I was back and forth between the Vail Valley and Summit County, Colorado, and ran into one of my old employers. And actually, he offered me my other job back that I quit the first time for quite a bit more money that I thought it would take to quit being remote, and lock myself into the Vail Valley, which is very expensive. But I recently decided that that was kind of a dumb decision, and I'm actually taking the remote job back. That is kind of hybrid office. There's multiple offices. There's offices down in Denver, Fort Collins, but I try to avoid the city and stay in the mountains. And then, of course, my home office is Marquette, but I'm hardly ever there. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm starting that job up next week. I got to go back up to Marquette. And I have other reasons to go up there, family, and to take care of my house, but get back to the mountains for some skiing soon afterward.
Yeah, I like the lifestyle, man. It's always really interesting how people are able to, dovetail their passion, their interest with their work, and it takes sacrifice. But I'm curious if you consider a sacrifice, like what's your experience been living in a van and being a little transient, being able to float around and do like these races and stuff? Are you enjoying this lifestyle, or does it kind of wear on you?
I really enjoy this lifestyle. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the bikepacking lifestyle, at least for me. Being able to move kind of wherever the next spot is. It's like, okay, this next race is in Arizona. Like, I've been in the van for almost a month now, just for the Arizona trail race, which is a huge effort. I mean, it's a huge effort just to get to the start line. So it kind of takes like almost a month. I mean, if you really want to prepare and get there and have everything squared away, it almost just takes like dedicating the month of October, at least for me, getting the bike ready, getting the van ready. Okay, I'm going to be in the van for this month and I'm going to do this race. And it's kind of the same thing for CTR, but maybe a little less so. And I'm talking about mostly CTR and Arizona Trail Race, but I do a lot of other, I guess you'd call them shorter races, but the NUE series, National Ultra Endurance Series.
Okay.
And like the Mohican 100, Telluride 100. And I kind of just take the van to the next race location, as soon as I can or when it makes sense. And that's the lifestyle, and work from there and get ready for that race. And just, I really have come to love those areas that I go to. Like Telluride, I spent a weekend, I think, before and after the race. So I just kind of go to the next good spot, like where the riding is good. Yeah. And I've just come to embrace that.
What a really cool thing, because I mean, your cost of living is going way down. You're able to hang out in Telluride and, and actually probably afford it, right? Right. And enjoy Telluride, and you're getting ready for your races, and you're working and making money. So yeah, it sounds like a pretty great thing. Just add 2 kids and a dog to your situation, and then let me know how you like it.
Yeah, we might be doubling the size of the van at that point.
Yeah.
Or throwing a trailer in.
Absolutely. So I'm getting a better picture of you, and I'm curious, I mean, you've been on this journey for a short period of time, specifically like the bike pack racing part of it, but it sounds like you've been an outdoors person for a long time. And I'm curious for you, with bike pack racing specifically, are you looking at it as just something you pursue for fun, or are you really motivated to be like an athlete and get records and win races, or what are your kind of goals and driving motivations behind like what you're doing?
I guess in anything I start, I'm always pretty motivated to do well. Like let's do as well as you can, right? But when I start a race, I'm not saying, "Oh, I'm gonna win this race," or "I'm gonna go set this record." Like there's just so many things that have to come together, that have to go right in order for that to happen. And I guess it sort of happened this year on the Arizona Trail. Felt so strong in the last 3 days, which was kind of key. But I am motivated to lean more to the bike packing side from here on out. I enjoy all types of bike racing, from fat bike, snow bike racing up there in Upper Michigan. I did a lot of fat bike racing in Leadville last winter. So I just enjoy all types of bike racing, but I guess I will say
that's the right answer. Bikes or death, all of them. It's right.
right.
Yeah, right answer.
There you go. But I will say that, especially with this, and recently I've really embraced the bike pack side of things, and it's just kind of like, maybe I'll use the skiing analogy. For me, it's like you can have a good day at the resort skiing. It's like, okay, there's a little bit of fresh snow, but like having like that 2-foot powder day is kind of like what it's all about. And for me, it's kind of like, okay, like all these other races are just kind of like just the fluff. Like these are okay, these are fun. But then the bike pack side of things is like, okay, this is my 2-foot powder day. Like this is just like an incredible thing. Like I feel super passionate about this. This is like what it's all about. Like it all just builds into this like Arizona Trail or Colorado Trail, and hopefully like Tour Divide in the future, soon in the future. It's a big one to make work. But and there's a lot of other bike pack races that interest me, like Pinions and Pines in northern Arizona. That's on my list. There's others I'd like to put on the list. It's just some of them are so huge and they're such huge efforts. It's just like, when am I going to fit these in with work and everything else?
Yeah, it's a big hurdle. Yeah, so I'm curious to know if you've thought about or have any thoughts on what it is that draws you to bike packing specifically. What makes it the 2-foot powder day for you? We do see this a lot. Like once people who are adventurous, who are in all sorts of sports, like outdoor adventure sports, once they find out about bike packing, it's kind of like, okay, this is what I want to do. This has all the components. And, so I don't know. Have you thought about that? Like what is it about like bike packing and racing in this format that really appeals to you?
I think the do-it-yourself motto, when it comes down to all these bike pack races, they're self-supported. You get it done for you and yourself. Like you don't take outside assistance. And if you really embrace those rules, like I think you get a ton out of it. And it's like, wow, I like did all of this myself. I covered all of this terrain, fed myself, took care of my bike, like got myself to the finish line, like didn't rely on anybody else. And that's like the roots of the whole thing. And I just really like that I can handle all of these situations, I guess, and kind of bring it all together and like still be in a good mood and make good progress on the bike. I think is like the fundamental of it. And then like there's just, you cover so much terrain, like the Arizona Trail, like desert, super technical, techie riding, steep, rocky descents, like, and then you go up into the mountains and you're in this like alpine trail, and then you descend off the mountains, you're back into the desert, and it's just, you cover so much and see so much, and you power yourself the whole way.
Yeah. I've also noticed that this sport seems to attract a lot of more engineer type minded people, and I often wonder if it's like the overall puzzle of it, you know, from health and nutrition to the maps to the resupply, your gear, like everything has to be. It's a one big puzzle, and the only way to, you know, it only works when everything comes together, right? Or, you know, you could get a massive flood and it would take out, you need Noah's Ark to get out of there. But aside from an act of God, you know, I mean, it's a big puzzle that you just have to figure out.
Right. It's got to be part of the draw too. I mean, definitely the engineer mind, just always trying to figure it out. And like, when it's figured out and you feel good and like things are just going amazing out there, like feeling good is just such a puzzle to put together. Like, how do I feel good on this segment? Because when I feel good, like I'm enjoying myself and covering so much ground so much faster, and just making sure you take care of yourself to feel good. I kind of knew I had to do that on the AZT, and like I just felt good. And
yeah. That's a great way to put it. I often say that for me at least, like comfort is the number one priority. If you're comfortable, like you're happy, you're in a good mood, you're pedaling faster, like everything is better. And so if like, I like the way you put it, like you're just trying to be comfortable like the whole time. You're trying to solve that puzzle of like, how can I be comfortable? How can I be enjoying this right now? And the more you can solve that puzzle, the more you're just going to enjoy your time out there, right?
Right. Like, yeah, exactly. And like, I tend to really just enjoy the trail. Like when I'm riding the trail well, like I love descending hard. And like, if I can keep descending hard and riding technical trail fast, like I'm just even more stoked about what I'm doing.
Yeah. So, the AZT last year, you signed up for the 300. Was it always your plan to kind of do the 300 first and then do the 800? Curious why, you know, was there any reason why you didn't just go ahead and try the whole thing the first time? Or I don't even know if that was your first time, to be honest. I just assumed.
That was my first time on the Arizona Trail, was last year in the 300. Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to try something other than the CTR, the Colorado Trail Race last year. And I hadn't done much other than that. And I really enjoyed it on the Arizona Trail last year. And my idea is, you know, exactly kind of what you said, do the progression of the 300 and then do the 800. So I went ahead and signed up for the 300 last year and was like, okay, like I'll do a little bit of research, like enough to get me to the finish line and have a general idea where the water is.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And at first time ever touching the AZT, sort of, I hadn't realized that I had touched it till I was already out there. I'll get to that, but did well enough to be considerably ahead of the field. Pretty much the entire race. Well, me and one other racer were kind of going, we were pretty close, but ended up pulling it off. But there's a key water fill up at the Gila River at the ADOT spigot. And I didn't research the last 40 miles of the race. I was running out of time. I was like, whatever, it's the last 40 miles. Like, I'll just slog through it. And oh boy, like I think you're familiar with the climb out of the Gila River and up to the rain collector, Martinez Canyon, and over to Picket Post.
I've never done it, so I'm actually doing an IAT. I'm actually doing the 300 as a spring thing. I'm actually going to be announcing it on this episode, but Bikes for Death is going to host like a spring group start, ITT or whatever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this coming year. And so, yeah, I'm very interested in the 300 and because I'll be seeing it for the first time. I've ridden in that area around Tucson and stuff. It's fucking beautiful. But yeah, first time. It'll be my first time on the AZT.
Nice. Yeah, the first 300 it's so much fun. I love that riding. There's so much technical desert riding, and yeah, you go into the Catalina Mountains, Mount Lemmon, and everything kind of changes. It's awesome. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is the Gila River, kind of 260 miles in or so. You come out of those Tortilla Mountains down to the ADOT spigot, down to the Gila, and there's like a key water fill up. You can't miss this spigot. And I had just had no idea it was there in the 300 last year. And it was so hot down in the Gila River. It's one of the lowest points of the course. And you're just going up and kind of up and down through this river valley. And it's rocky, a bit technical. It's just all exposed right in the sun. I was out of water and was eventually like, well, shoot, like I need to like find access to the river. And I filtered out of the Gila, which then everybody made fun of me for afterward because drinking out of that thing is nasty. But just filtered a little bit because it was so nasty. And started the first bit of hike-a-bike up Martinez Canyon. A lot of it is rideable, but the first little bit's pretty rocky, 2-track from the river. And I was like, okay, I'll have enough, whatever. And got just halfway up the thing and was just so dry. Was out of water for like 2-3 hours, and it was just terrible. And then I get to the top of Martinez Canyon, and I'm like, I'm looking around, like, I've been up here before. Like, this is totally like familiar. Like, there's a rain collector up here somewhere. I was like relieved. I was like, I had been there like 10 years ago in high school, like riding with a buddy. And I was like, I can't believe this is like so familiar. I know there's a rain collector. And I got to the spot and you can kind of see the rain collector up there. And I was like, oh, thank God. And like, It was such a haul just to get to the rain collector, but I made it, got some water, finished the last like 10 to 15 miles to the finish. But yeah, It turns out that I had ridden from the Picket Post trailhead before and I didn't even know where I was in like high school or something.
Yeah. When did you find out about the water spigot that you missed, or the key water spot?
Oh, talking to one of the guys at the finish that were waiting for me. There were 5-6 guys there or something. Like, well, you missed the spigot? And I'm like, what spigot? So that was like an example of a mistake. There were other mistakes I made last year, but just mistakes you really wouldn't want to make when you're going for a smooth 800 run.
Well, that's a great segue. Actually, I wanted to ask you next, what did you learn from that 300 that you changed or you did differently or that helped prepare you going into this year? So very topical.
Yeah. I mean, there are other things like that. That was the main one.
Did you change your bike setup or anything? Like, it had to help you, prepare training wise. Like, did it help you? And what did you change or do differently to prepare for the 800?
So I rode a different bike this year just because I needed another bike. I liked what I rode, the Epic Evo, Specialized Epic Evo, but I knew that I kind of wanted to lean on the side of more travel, and stock the bike comes 120 in the front, 110 rear. I bumped it up even before CTR this year to 130 in the front, and I just think the extra cush on your hands and whole body with the 130 is just worth it. It came with a regular Fox 34, so I was able to put the longer travel in, not the step cast for. And I knew I was going to want that on the AZT.
What are your thoughts on running like front suspension, like a hardtail versus full suspension? I mean, we see a lot of full suspensions, and I don't have a full suspension bike, so I'm like, crap, do I need to get one?
I pretty much ride my full suspension everywhere, and to me, maybe it's my engineering mind. I'm always like, this suspension works so well, like why wouldn't I want to ride this like everywhere? And I like to descend really hard. Like that's what keeps me stoked about these races, is just bombing these awesome descents.
That's the skier in you talking.
Yeah, it is.
bombing mountains, dodging trees and cactus and shit.
Yeah, the cactus definitely kicked a couple of those and that hurt, but in the middle of the night. Um, so I'm very like toward the full suspension side. I can't on this course, like if you're just doing the first 300, we would definitely go full suspension. Like there's so much trail, there's not really any detour there around the wilderness areas. If you're going full 800, I could see more hardtail side of things. But like for a fast time or just enjoying yourself on the first 300, I would always go like around that 100 mil to 120 mil travel rear bike with a 120 to 140 front is would be my ideal setup. Last year on the
All right.
300, I rode an Ibis Ripley with a Pike on the front 140 and the rear 120, and that was awesome in the 300.
All right. You just made a bike sale for a bike shop. We'll see who gets it. Maybe I'll get a bunch of calls after this and someone will give me a good deal on a bike.
Go into the Kind in Edwards, Colorado.
Oh, is that, you got your repping?
Yeah.
You got your shirt on? Is that your bike shop?
Yeah, those guys are awesome. And ski shop.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? Anything else did you change, or any other ways that having that first experience helped prepare you for this year?
Yeah, I kind of just knowing what was going to be out there. Like it was so hot the first 3-4 days of this race, like people were posting pictures of like over 100 degrees. And
Yeah.
I've never been this hot in my life, like climbing Molino Basin before the Catalina Highway, climbing up to that and then back down. But just so hot. Like, oh my, I thought I was melting. Like, I thought I died like 27 times. Like,
I'm laughing, but in the moment, I know that's actually really scary. That heat exposure is no joke.
Oh, it was like the worst. So just kind of knowing what was coming, like I left Tucson with 8.5 liters of fluids. And it still wasn't enough. Like I still had to use the Molino cache, which you're not really supposed to use caches in this race. There were a couple that I used that like everyone I think pretty much had to use. But there's a lot of water out there when you're on a bike, you really don't need the caches. But definitely use the Molino cache.
Can you touch on that? I'm just to clarify, what is that rule on using the caches? Obviously you said some people did, so it's not like a firm rule. Like what are the guidelines there?
Yeah. So I guess first and foremost, don't die out there. So use the water if you need it. But if it has somebody's name on it, or if it says like AZT hiker or something in the cache, like absolutely do not use it. There's water in there that is not labeled and some that just say public water. I think there were 58 gallons of public water at Molino, but that's because it was a key one and people knew the race was going through. Now there were others like in the Canelos or somewhere where there's like tanks and spigots, and I had a filter on my hydration bladder, so I just filled up at like Cot tank was in the Canelos. And then you like maybe top off at the cache. Like I topped off at some of them, but don't like drain, especially like if the whole race is going to come through, don't just drain the cache for the hikers.
Yeah.
Just take enough to get through and just kind of be courteous of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good rule and keeping everybody safe out there. I was looking at your race times between your first year on the 300 versus your time on the first 300 of this year's race. I don't know if you've looked at that, but you were, I think, about 23 hours slower this year on the first 300 miles. And one thought I had, or I had a couple of thoughts, heat was a thought. Like, I'm actually impressed with all the results because of the heat. That's one of the big things that we were hearing about at the beginning of this year's race. So did the heat slow you down this year, or do you think the slower time is more a factor of just a different race strategy? It's a longer race. You're going to need to pace yourself.
It was all of it. I had a ton more gear. This is the heaviest setup I've ever taken in any race. Like all my pretty much winter riding gear because it was so cold after the North Rim on the North Kaibab Plateau. I knew it was going to be cold, and just keep moving is always the key. Take the gear if you think you're going to need it. I had rain gear because there was actually rain in the forecast, and it actually didn't end up raining that much. But the rain gear always serves as another layer. Just it was also a longer race than I usually do, so more gear was required and more food than ever because some of the resupplies were a bit further out, further spaced than I normally have. So just a really heavy setup too than the 300. The 300, I didn't plan on sleeping. I didn't really take a sleep system. Took like a couple naps when I did the 300 effort, but it was pretty much one huge push. This year I had a whole sleep system, just a ton more gear. But yeah, the heat too. The heat was way worse than last year, but it also made the trail condition better. There was less cat claw, less kind of overgrowth on the trail. There's a lot of prickly cat claw sometimes in the first 300. Well, after that too, there's some. But the trail condition was really good compared to last year. It rode a lot better. But the main thing was actually something you didn't mention, and the course kind of changed. The 300 and the 800 are a little different now. The 800 does what's called the lemon push, and it's spelled with a C in there in the push because it goes around that push wilderness, and that's how it's spelled. So instead of riding the highway like the 300 does, the 300 hits Bolino Basin, does prison camp there at the bottom, and then you start going up the Catalina Highway to Summerhaven to the Sunset Trail. And it's quite a bit of highway that the 300 takes, probably the most pavement in the whole race. And there's not much. The 800 now, instead of shooting up the highway after prison camp in Molino Basin, we stay on the trail and we go up Bug Springs, which is a pretty famous descent in Tucson. And it's pretty ledgy, and you start getting into these 2-3 foot ledges that you're like heaving the bike up. And then it goes up Green Mountain, the next kind of famous descent in Tucson. And it gets even more ledgy. I'd say like upwards of 3 foot ledges, and some where you're like, some I had to like set the bike up and like figure out how to work myself up this thing, this like rock face outcrop. And it was at that point where I started getting these terrible cramps, just weird cramps in my calves that I've never really had before in a race. And it was like, what, day 3, almost day 3, end of day 2 in the heat, just pushing hard. And I'm sure it was just lack of electrolyte. It was just so hot, hottest I've ever been in my life, using different muscles to do this lemon push where you're pushing your bike up this stuff. So I actually had to sleep for 10 hours that night. Like I knew I just had to lay down as soon as I could. It was like the second time I fell over on the trail, literally fell over from the cramps. And was on the ground, I think nearly 12 hours and slept maybe 9-10 of those.
Wow.
And made a huge recovery and felt great the next day, and pretty much felt great ever since then, the rest of the race. But
what mile would that have been at that you kind of crashed for the second time or fell down for the second time and just stayed there for 12 hours?
140, 150.
Okay.
I think.
And so he didn't change it for the 300 this year as well. It's only the 800 that's going to do the lemon push.
Yes, and the reasoning is that, well, there's a couple of reasons. The Highline Trail by Pine to the north that the 800 does, they have redone that trail, and it rides awesome. It is one of my...
Oh, he redone it.
They redid it, and it rides incredible now. And apparently it was a lot slower before. So in order to try to make the times comparable year to year, he had to make the trail harder somewhere else. So I guess the lemon push kind of makes up for that time difference.
Oh, interesting.
To an extent. And then the other reasoning was like, well, if the lemon push is too hard, then maybe the Grand Canyon is too hard. So we they just kind of said that. A bunch of awesome single speeders did it last year,
Right.
um, as kind of the preliminary, and now we do part of that route. And I agree. I mean, it's great to try to get the thing I like about the CTR is you can compare it year to year to year. The AZT has changed some year to year to year. So trying to keep the route more comparable in time, in results, I guess, is good. Like if the trail's going to get faster somewhere in the north, like, yeah,
Yeah.
make it harder somewhere else.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
interesting.
cool.
So go ahead.
Oh, it's cool. The lemon push it's something. I don't know.
It's
I'm
something.
I'm
So
not
it's
against
interesting.
it.
Do you have any sense to whether or not it was harder this year or whether it was easy and if that contributed to your time?
I will say that I had a much harder time getting to the finish of the 300 than I did last year. But that, I mean, it's due to a number of factors. Like we talked about the heavier bike, the heat, now the
Yeah.
lemon push. The lemon push was huge, a huge time suck, especially because of the cramps I had. I'm sure I wouldn't have had those cramps if I was just pedaling up the highway using normal cycling muscles. Um, it was also rode a lot better this year. It was less overgrown. So that was a helpful factor. I don't know if that all the negative factors I think outweighed that helpful factor of the trail being in better shape.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was hard. Like it.
Well, another interesting point whenever you're talking about, especially like these long races and looking at year to year, is the trail is going to be different every single year. It's always going to change. Weather's going to have an impact. And so it's never going to be a one for one. Like this year was identical to this year. And, there's always going to be factors at play. So,
Right. Right. Like thinking about weather on the CTR, like weather on the CTR can be such a huge influencer. Like if you have
yeah.
rain out there, if you don't have rain, just a huge factor.
Yeah. I know what I wanted to ask you. I'm very interested. Mostly, recently I did an attempt of a route in Texas that was 475 miles long, and I didn't complete it. And a big factor for that was the heat. And I grew up in Texas and have dealt with heat my whole life, but like I don't know. Now I'm 43, and I feel like I'm struggling more as it gets hotter. And I'm wondering, like, did you have any tactics that helped you endure the heat from this year, or did you just endure it and suck it up and keep going? Like, other than taking a 12-hour nap, I guess that's one good tactic is rest and recovery.
Yeah. Um, sort of. I mean, I've had a lot of experiences, bad experiences in the heat in my past in any form of bike racing. And I think I've come to learn like the line that I have to draw where I can't push any harder than this. Like this is it, or my stomach's going to go haywire, or I'm going to cramp, or I'm not going to be able to eat, or something's going to happen, or I can't go any harder than this. So, and I don't really have a way of like knowing that other than I just know by feel. Like if this is how this feels, like it's not like a certain heart rate or certain anything. Like if I go harder than this, like things are going to get bad. So keeping that in mind in the first 100 miles, I just knew that I couldn't go past that point. It's like, okay, it's just ride further into the night and try to make up for maybe the sleep deprivation later on in the course, which I did get a hotel in Superior to try to recover from the first 3 days of heat.
Okay.
Just because I knew my body was gonna need it. Like it was just so hot, and I was like, if I can feel good and move faster later, like it's gonna pay off.
Right. Yeah.
That was kind of the strategy, and every other water fill up was electrolyte that first day, and then the second day, like every single one, I put electrolyte mix in as much as I
Right.
could. like still wasn't enough. The salt deposits on the jersey were insane. Like just everything was white. Like you could like flick the shirt and just the
flake
flaky
off.
salt would come off. It was just
Gnarly.
nasty and just, yeah.
I think I know that's one thing that really screwed up my attempt was I completely forgot to bring electrolytes, and there's no water resupply for the first like 120 miles on that route. And by the time I got to 120, I didn't recover very well. So electrolytes, that's an easy one to remember. I should be remembering that. What did you do to train? Do you have a training program? What are you doing to get ready for, let's say specifically AZT 800? How did you train? If you do have any type of training program, what does that look like for you?
So I do have a general amount of hours I want to hit every week for training. And I'm not incredibly structured. I'm not like, okay, this day is 2 by 20s or this day is this heart rate minimum. I kind of throw that in. Like I have a few routes in the Vail Valley where I'll say, okay, this is a good 20-minute effort. Like I'm going max effort up this climb. And then I'm hitting some awesome single track on the backside of Vail or something afterward. So like, I guess I try to hit as many of these hard climbs as I can and then just keep it technical, like keep it on trail. Like all of my training is on the mountain bike. I don't even own a road bike. And I probably would if money and everything wasn't a factor.
You had a bigger van.
Yeah, right. Storage is one of them. I would totally benefit from just miles on the road, but also what keeps me passionate about it is these awesome trails that we have in Colorado and just hitting them all the time. And it just so happens that all these bikepacking races are pretty much all on the trail and technical trail. So all of this mileage on trail, especially on the Arizona trail, I think it suited me well because there is so much trail. And if you can just flow through these technical portions, kind of like flow, I guess, ride them well, you're going to be so much faster. And it just kind of comes as like second nature to me to ride this hard stuff and enjoy it just because that's what I like to do. And that's what I do as my like regular training. Granted, there are a lot of sustained climbs in Colorado, and I put in hard efforts on those climbs, but then I really, really enjoy the descents.
Yeah. When I was preparing for this episode, I was looking through your Instagram, and I saw one video. I thought you had hiked to the top. It was a 13er, I believe, in Colorado. And then you panned down a little and I saw a bike tire. I'm like, that dude rode his bike all the way up there. Like that's training.
Yeah. I don't know if you're talking about the one. I actually climbed Mount Elbert with the bike, which is the highest 14er in Colorado, with the bike on my back with my Grand Canyon portage set up to kind of train and get ready.
I saw it was 13 too. It was I think it was like a fat bike or something or a mid fat.
Oh yeah, that was that was in the Mosquito Range between Fairplay and Leadville last winter. I was eyeing that up for a while. I was actually living at about 11,000 last winter, doing a dog sitting gig actually for this woman that wasn't at the house very much and living there for free, and doing my engineering remote job from there and coaching Team Summit. Mostly at Copper Mountain and Breck, but just because I was on that side of Vail Pass, I'm very much a Vail side of the Vail Pass kind of guy, but within Summit County last winter a lot, but for the Colorado people that know. Anyway, yeah, I was living right by that mountain and was eyeing that up, and yeah, I was like, I'm going to go right up to 13 in whatever, January, February. A lot of it was rideable because it was so windy exposed up there. And then it was a killer descent on the way down on the fat bike. That was fun.
Yeah, that's some That's my kind of training. Well, if I had that available to me, but that's a lot better than hopping on a trainer for hours and hours. I like that training program. You mentioned you try to, there's like an hour goal or an hour mark that you try to hit. About what is that, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, I guess in the winter, like I'm trying to ride minimum 9, 10 hours on the fat bike. And I do all of my riding outside. I don't have a trainer or any sort of trainer set up. There were a lot of 5-degree days, and Fairplay, Colorado is a cold place, and that's where I was last winter. But still, like, sucked it up, got the heated socks, got my 2-hour rides in, and did it. But then it ramps up in the spring. I'd go from a 20-hour week, which was pretty huge, down to like 12-hour week was becoming small in the spring and late summer. And then probably on average 15 hours a week.
Yeah. Very solid. Let's get into this year's race. It was an exciting one. How are you feeling going into this year? Like, were you feeling hopeful? Did you let me ask you this as well. Like, what goals or aspirations did you have going into this year's race?
After a disappointing CTR, my goal was to finish and enjoy myself and feel good. And if that results in a good result, then sweet. I really didn't have any other goals than to make everything go smoothly. And I was just so bummed about not finishing the CTR that I'm like, I just need to finish, was basically what it was in the end.
Yeah. Did you, I mean, yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is like, what preparations or what strategy did you have in place to be able to finish? Like, did you over prepare? Did you make sure you knew where all the water spigots were? Like, that kind of stuff. You're like, I just want to finish this thing. I just want a good run.
I definitely put waypoints in my Garmin eTrex, in the GPX file, as, hey, there could be water here. There's definitely water here. I also kind of had it mapped out in my brain, kind of exactly where these key water places were, and a general layout. Like, I studied the route after the 300 pretty well. Like, I knew how far the resupplies, general idea where they were, where it would be a good idea to get extra water. Saguaro Lake before the Four Peaks climb was definitely one of them. Like, I think I had all of these like key spots pretty well in my mind, and I didn't have it down to a T, but just thinking back on it, like, I had it down pretty efficiently and kind of knew exactly what I had to do when I got there.
Speaking about your efficiency, you mentioned that this year you had a pretty dialed sleep kit, or you actually had a sleep kit this year, which is on the 300. You didn't do much sleeping. What was your system?
So I have a 30-degree quilt, which I wouldn't have gone any less than a 30-degree bag or quilt. This year I took an SOL sole bivy, which it's a little bit thicker than my more waterproof bivy that I usually take on a race that's going to have more weather, or usually a wet race. But it's a little warmer than that more waterproof bivy. And I knew it was just going to be crazy cold after Flagstaff, and I was going to appreciate that warmth. So the bivvy's a little bit heavier than the other one, but I knew that I needed it. And the quilt I figured there was quite a bit of, I do like the full sleeping bag for the little bit of padding you get, because I don't take a ground pad underneath you. But I was like, hey, there's like enough sandy spots in Arizona, or like there's a lot of rock and a lot of hard places, but it was like, I can probably find enough sandy spots where it's like soft enough, and like its sand is a little bit warmer than like regular ground, I feel like. And I did. I found quite a few sandy spots that were good to sleep. And I really don't see a need for me to take the full sleeping bag. I don't need the bottom part of it. The quilt still kind of I can still kind of wrap it underneath me a little bit and sleep on my side and get a little bit of cushion. And I'm so dead anyway that you just fall right asleep.
But were you able to stay warm enough? That's my question without a pad. I mean, the sand might be a little warmer, but can't be that much warmer.
Yeah, I don't think it was a ton, but I guess I had, so with all of my clothing on, I had warmer socks, knee warmers, rain pants, down puffy jacket, a merino wool base layer that I didn't ride in, that I only slept in, rode in it the last day, but
Yeah.
kept it like nice for sleeping in, and then a rain jacket that I could put on top of that to break even more wind. But I only used that the last day when it was really cold to kind of like an extra windbreaker over the puffy. I just slept in the puffy, the merino wool, the knee warmers, the arm warmers, the pants over the knee warmers, the wool socks, my extra pair of socks. And I wasn't cold sleeping at all. I just didn't want to. I was between 4 and 6 a.m. and time to start riding, and I didn't want to get out.
Probably for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth. Or I guess that's the rest of that answer is the sleep system really includes like, yeah, your bivy and your quilt, but also like all these other layers that, make up the system. So,
Yeah.
let's see here. I want to start at, I think like Reddington Pass. That's a pretty significant, is it called Reddington Pass? I know Reddington Road leads up to Reddington Pass. Is that what the common vernacular is for that section? It comes at about mile 150 on the route. And notably, I wrote down the stats. It's like a 41-mile long climb with 8,300 feet of vert. And it's on the 300. So, I wanted to hear about like that section and what that's like and what to expect and how it went for you.
Yeah. I guess first of all, maybe I misspoke in the mileage I stated earlier where I slept then. If that's 150, then I probably slept around 170, 180 that time when I had to recover 10, 12 hours. Anyway,
I think the top of it is 150 if I'm right, if I looked at the map correctly.
I had it off a little bit then. Yeah, I guess Reddington sucked. Mostly because I carried a ton of water out of there, a ton of food. The bike was just so heavy, and it was already hot at that point. By the time I left Tucson, I got a little resupply, a little bit off route at the gas station there, and then headed up Reddington. So much water, and I still used it all, every last bit of it. But yeah, you kind of go up the road, Reddington Road. It turns into dirt out of Tucson. The sun's already coming up. It's hot. I don't know. It was like 9, 10 a.m. I was with the one of the other racers, Philip. But we were riding, and then kind of goes off onto some single track off the road a little bit. You meet back up with the road. You go back up the dirt road. It's kind of bumpy, chundery, pretty steep. You kind of top out. And I'm not sure where Reddington Pass exactly is. I know it's Reddington Road, but the road definitely keeps going. But we go off of that road onto Chiva Falls Jeep Trail, and this is part of that whole Wilderness National Park detour. And Chiva Falls is just this chundery, rocky, like Jeep Trail, like pretty decently gnarly Jeep Trail. Like the rig I have would struggle on it, but. And it's kind of pretty hard riding too. We kind of get off of that, meander some other 2-track back to the AZT, the Bellata section of the AZT. Maybe I'm pronouncing that right. Bioita, Bellata. That's like Italian trap area. And you kind of ride the single track back to Reddington Road. And that section gets really hot. Not a lot of shade, tons of sun, exposed. It's really fun riding. It's technical, rocky, steep ledges, little bit of hike for me. I can ride most of it, and I enjoy riding most of it, but there's some pretty technical sections, especially with a loaded bike. And then you kind of cross Reddington, and it's the same Bellata section. Or maybe it doesn't change to Boleta till after Reddington, and before that's Italian Trap. But anyway, ride that section toward Milagrosa Trail, which is a pretty famous trail in Tucson. Really awesome descent. You ride past Milagrosa, and it just stays techy a lot most of the time. And you kind of climb out of there toward Molino Basin, and then descend. Once you top out of this thing, it's got to be 1,500-foot hike a bike, maybe a little less than 1,500, maybe closer to 1,000. But it's just rocky, chunky. It's a hike a bike out of there. Never been so hot in my life, climbing out of there, and then you kind of top out and descend this pretty techy descent down to Molino Basin. But that's kind of that whole Reddington climb up toward the Catalina Highway.
Is there any water resupply in that section? You said you were carrying 8 liters.
Yeah, there is a tank, Italian Trap tank off of the 2-track just after Chiba Falls, but I had heard it was dry. There was water in it last year. Didn't even stop. That's where the Molino, and I had seen on the group that Molino cache was stopped. And just thank God I was able to fill up with one of the 58 gallons that was at Molino. Otherwise, that is one of the hardest stretches of the whole route, is carrying water through there. If it wasn't that crazy hot, I might have been able to get it. There's a little spring on Green Mountain Trail, which the 300 doesn't do. The 800 goes up Green Mountain as part of the Lemon Push. Might have been able to hit that spring just fine, but it was just so hot. I went through all of the liquid that I had.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. Noted.
Yeah, on the 300 hits the highway. There is a little, last year there was water in this little river kind of off the highway before the visitors center toward the top. The visitors center before Sunset Trail, before Summer Haven, has water. But I actually was so dry that I filled up the little river off the highway in the 300 last year.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have my homework ahead of me. This is part of my homework. You're helping me with my homework. It's going great so far. You're doing great. Thank you. Yeah, man. So there was after Reddington, it seems like this is when maybe the race started to develop a little bit, where at least from the dot watcher perspective that was going into Superior at mile 300. From your perspective, were you in a race? Were you in race mode? Or were you just in your own head doing your own thing?
Yeah, I kind of did get into race mode, and it's probably from the amount of caffeine I had at that point. So I actually was just so spent the first 3 days in that heat. When I left Summer Haven, I'm like, okay, enough food to hit picket post. That's what I did last year. And of course, I have to go quite a ways past picket post to the next resupply. I mean, there's resupply you could get food at Queen Valley, which is only a couple hours past picket post, but I had 0 left at picket post at Superior at the finish. So I actually had 0 before that. I ran out of solid food at the ADOT spigot where you hit the Gila River. It's like, okay, I have a ton of this Flow Formulas drink mix left with caffeine. This is enough to get me to Superior, which is just fine. I'll go into Superior tonight and I'll get a meal and food and whatever. It's a few miles off route. But I drank so much of that Flow Formulas mix that I had so much caffeine in me at the point where you make a big right-hand turn to start climbing into Martinez Canyon, and you're kind of climbing out of the river valley. You're just up and down to this Gila River Valley for so long, and it's so hot. And I was fine. I was drinking my drink mix. I liked that stuff. It was still all good. I knew it would get me to picket post. I knew that a couple other racers were down at the river. You make this right-hand turn, or you can make a left and go to the river. And I wanted to go to the river so bad, and cool off and just whatever. But I'm going to make this hard right, and I'm going to go try to win the 300. Why why not just do it? Like, I have enough water to get to the rain collector at the top. Like, I don't need to get water out of the nasty Gila. And it was just so hot. And then like I had so much caffeine, I'm like, I don't even notice the heat anymore. Like, I feel like a hero. And just like started flying up this climb. I'm like, this can't be like healthy. Like, I've had so much of this drink mix, like felt so good. And hit the rain collector, and Wyatt Spalding from bikepacking was there, take a picture. I'm like, yeah, man, like, feels so good. I had so much caffeine. Um, and then it started to fade off as we're kind of traversing toward Picket Post. And there's a few climbs, long traverses in there. And then I finally hit Picket Post, the finish. John Schilling was there. The other people are there. I was like, yeah, I'm out of food. Like, I got to go into Superior. And the caffeine had wore off at this point, just feeling dead. But rode through the AZT, past that a little bit, where you hit a dirt road, and it's pretty efficient to get from this dirt road. Instead of going left, go right into town. Got some food, felt way better. It was like, oh, shoot, it's 9:00. Like, I'm just going to stay here, let my body recover. Stayed in the little motel in Superior, and felt great that next morning. Started pedaling 5:30, 5:45, and caught back up to a bunch of the racers at the Bosch's, the resupply in Gold Canyon. And it's kind of funny, there were 4 of us outside the building there doing our resupply, and just food everywhere, bike stuff everywhere. We're all just scrambling, packing the stuff into our bikes. And I really appreciate everybody else in the race at that point. I was like, this is awesome to be out here with you guys.
Well, that was going on from the dot watcher perspective. It was fun. I was glued to the track leaders because Katya, you and a few others like stopped in Superior. Katya kept going and put a pretty good lead on you, or on the group, on the field. And from what I could tell from track leaders, you wouldn't catch her or catch up to her again for another 150 miles. So were you surprised that she skipped Superior and kept going?
I wasn't surprised. I think she had done the 300 before, so she probably planned better than I did. And I didn't know there was going to be a nice little place. There's like a grassy place you could sleep in Queen Valley after Picket Post, and I didn't know where she slept. But man, if I would have done it over, I would have made sure I had enough food to get there and slept there. And yeah, I would have been a lot more efficient. I don't know if I would have been in front of her or not, or what, but she made the correct move there. That was a good move on her part.
Yeah, I think her and
I wish I could have done that.
Skipped Superior, which made it a fun race. I mean, from a dot watcher, I was like, holy shit, here we go. And I mean, it was just great seeing Katya like leading the AZT for quite some time. I mean, she really put in an amazing effort, and it was fun to watch. Were you worried that you wouldn't catch her? Like, how much were you concerned about what other racers were doing? Maybe specifically in this instance, like, were you worried that you wouldn't catch her again, or were you just trying to stay in your race?
I was just staying in my race. I knew I still had to take care of myself, and there's still a ton of race left at that point. Like, a ton can happen. I wasn't trying to push it. I was just trying to. I mean, I'm definitely pushing it, but I wasn't like stressed out about somebody's way off the front or this guy or whatever. I'm trying to like stay in there and like still make it achievable. But at the same time, just, I was there to finish still at that point. Not like, oh, I want to be off the front or whatever. I mean, yeah, it'd be sweet, but just knew that I had to make the right moves there, or like just getting to the finish was going to be a struggle.
It's funny, the caffeine wore off, you're out of race mode, and now you just want to finish again.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like I had this goal. Is like, well, shoot, like I could beat them to Picket Post and win the 300 2 years in a row. Well, I mean, it's a different course kind of now, but the 800 is a little harder anyway. But So I was like, yeah, I was in race mode there, and now I'm just like, okay, now it's like another 500 miles of racing
Yeah.
to the 800 finish. So just
I
back
guess
to
you
taking
did
care of
celebrate with
myself.
some food and a nap at a hotel. So that's a good way to celebrate a 300 and then keep on going.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't. It would have been a smarter move, a better move to keep going like Katya did, and great job to her. I wish that I had that planning beforehand, or the strength to do it. I don't one or the other or both.
One or the
Um,
other, both. Yeah.
but I I don't know. The hotel in Superior just might have allowed me to feel really good, like I did the last 3 4 days, and just made
Right.
some huge moves there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it goes. I mean, it's a long race and you don't know how it's all going to play out, but that's kind of the fun of it is, all right, he got 12 hours or 10 hours of sleep. And how is that going to pay off later in the dividends? So it turned
Right.
out to work out right for you. Did you and Katya have any, did y'all ride together much? Like whenever you caught up to her, did y'all chat much? Or what was it's always interesting to know like what the dynamics like whenever you're kind of in a race, but it's also you have, 200, 300 miles left and you're like, hey, haven't seen anyone in a while. Like, what was that
Yeah.
like?
No, it was really good to see her. I think I ran into her after the descent into Sunflower, just after Sycamore Creek. Um, and I saw her around, a couple corners or something. Yay! Finally, somebody else in the race.
Mm.
Um, and we chatted a little bit. Um, I think she was stopped and just good to talk to somebody. Like I don't really care. I'll stop and chat with somebody for a while. And but eventually you're like, hey, well, I guess I'm gonna keep rolling. I gotta go. Or urgency starts to creep in, and then there was a little gap that formed between me and her after that. We didn't really ride together. She was stopped at the time, um, but um, she caught back up at Payson as I was getting food and resupplying at the Bosch's, the grocery store there. And I actually saw her. She had her bike in the cart area, and I had just brought mine right into the little food area where you sit down and eat. There was like
Mm-hmm.
nobody in this store. It was like 8 at night.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. I had my stuff plugged in, stuff just sprawled out over this little dining area. People were like, "What are you doing? Oh, that's awesome!" And nobody cared. I had everything all over. So then I saw her out there. I'm like, "Hey, like, just you can bring your bike in over here. Like, there's plenty of space." So we both had our bikes, like all the stuff just sprawled out all over the dining area at the grocery store. And we chatted a bit there. I'm stuffing food in my face, and she's organizing whatever. But I don't know, it was maybe a half hour chatting there and just letting stuff charge. And we were talking about what I was gonna do, what she was gonna do. I was like, well, I'm hitting Pine Trailhead tonight. It's like I just had a Starbucks double shot and I'm headed out. I'm going to do it. And I think that convinced her to go hit it, which I haven't been able to talk to her much afterward, but I think she might have regretted going out and doing it. I think she slept a little bit before there, but I felt great that night and hit Pine Trailhead and kept going up to like a little high point. There's a little nice sandy spot at kind of the top there, and I slept. And I didn't see her or anyone. Yeah,
Ever
I don't think
again.
I saw anyone after that. What's that?
Yeah. I said ever again until
Yeah,
the end. Yeah, I think that's the way it went. So like, yeah, I think like by Flagstaff, which is at mile 600, you had about a 50-mile lead on the rest of the field. I'm wondering like, is it easier? Is it harder? Is it more enjoyable? Whatever to be chasing or to be at the lead? Like, I guess which one has more pressure? Which one do you like the best?
yeah, that's a good question. Um, I guess I like leading it. Who doesn't, right?
Good answer. Being at the front's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about maybe staying somewhere in Flagstaff that night, but it ended up being like 2, 3 a.m. by the time I really got close to the highway there at Flag. And I was like, there's a sandy spot here. I'm just taking a 2-3 hour nap, and I'm going to go hit the cafe when they open at 6 and get my food and hit the gas station and be pretty efficient and get out. But bike wasn't really shifting at all at that point. I had to kick the derailleur to get it to actually go down, to get it to move. The cable was just so gummed up. So I actually stopped at the gas station. It was a little bit longer stop than I wanted. But I knew people were coming still, so I wanted to be efficient. But bought a can of spray lube at the gas station, sprayed as much into the housing at either end as I could, tipped the bike upside down, got some movement again, set the cable back up, and now I could dump like 4 gears and it would go down instead of me having to kick it. And then
Nice.
I'd have to go up from there to get it back into like the second one down from the top. And it's still, it wouldn't want to go down from the granny gear. So I had to set the limit a little bit where it would be just barely enough to get into the granny, and it would keep it off of it enough where it would then go down. So sometimes I couldn't get into the granny gear quick enough for a climb in those San Francisco mountains, peaks, and some other climbs after that. I was only in the second one. It was just so steep. I'm like, okay, just whatever. Like, don't even stress about it. Get off, hike. Like, don't break a chain.
Yeah. Don't break a chain. Yeah. Don't need a major mechanical. I mean that's a mechanical problem, but it's you're still riding your bike. It's just a pain in the ass. But losing a chain, that's a non-starter.
Yeah.
By the time you got to Grand Canyon, which is at mile 700, you still had a 50-mile lead on Phillip. I'm curious, like, how you were feeling dropping into the Grand Canyon for the first time. At some point, did you start to like, man, I can win this? Did you start to lean into that, or did you just, I'm curious, like, what's it like to have a 50-mile lead and you're about to strap your bike on your back and drop it in the Grand Canyon? Like, that's just got to be like a surreal moment in life, you know?
Yeah, it kind of was. I felt kind of like a machine, actually. I had the pack ready to go. I knew right what buckle went where this strap went. Just knew I had one goal: get the bike on the pack and get the heck down there.
Yeah.
So I think, so I picked up my pack at the visitors center at Tucson. I didn't ride with it the whole time. I really wanted to, but I just couldn't get it adjusted quite right. It was the Osprey Stratos 24. I couldn't get it adjusted quite right where it wouldn't hit me in the back of the head on some descents. And I'm like, I can't ride 700 miles like this. Maybe I can figure it out in the future, but the way I timed it, I hit Tucson just before midnight, hit the taco joint that was still open that night when I rolled in, got 4 hours of sleep in a hotel there. And so there are 2 hotels, Superior and Tucson, just because it made sense. It was so cold, and I'm like, I have to wait till 9 till the visitor center opens for the pack. And I'm like staring in the doors of the visitor center at 8:30, like, open this door. They opened it right at 9. I got the box, got the pack, fresh socks, pair of shoes to hike in. And I think I dropped into the canyon just before 11. So it was pretty efficient. Got the pack pedaled to the portage point, got the bike mounted up, and I felt like I made good time down to Phantom Ranch at the bottom. I think I made it 3.5 hours, and drank 4 lemonades at Phantom Ranch. They have a little bar concession stand there, and proceeded on just a long, like, meandering North Kaibab. Just kind of follows the river creek there, and so then you get to the end of it and you look up and you're like, wow, there's the switchbacks.
There's the switchbacks. What was this pack that you were using, and how did you alter it or whatever to get it to work with a bike?
You didn't really alter it at all. It just had some straps on the side that kind of like set the bike where I wanted it. Like I attached one to like the top tube and one to like the non-drive chainstay, and that kind of got it centered where I wanted it. And then I just had like gear straps, ties that went through the frame. I think again, like one to the top tube that really cinched it down. They were like flexible, so they got tight and went into a hole and wrapped around. And then one to the chainstay again, maybe one to like part of the down tube, and that kind of kept the bike from moving. Then to move the handlebars so that the my handlebar bag wouldn't hit, I just used like a gear tie on the handlebars to kind of pull them back the other way. And that worked pretty well. And then just some straps strapped my front wheel. The rear wheel was in the air, drive side out, and the front wheel was attached to close to the rear wheel, and the helmet just strapped on to the back. I threw my day riding, my regular pack into my Osprey pack and cinched the bike down on top of that. Had a bunch of snacks in there for the ride from North Rim after I was done to the finish. And yeah, when I hit North Rim, I just threw the Osprey pack by the dumpster, threw on my day riding pack, and someone got a nice Osprey pack, but I didn't really care at that point.
Oh, that's wild. I wonder if we'll ever find out who someone's going to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, that's where it came from. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, right.
An Osprey pack with a history and
Right.
a cool history too. How much did that pack weigh? Any idea what your setup weighed, and how well did that setup perform? I mean, this is something super unique to AZT, is hiking with a bike on your back. So, yeah.
I didn't weigh it. I didn't weigh anything. I kind of would like to, but it just seems like it's all I can do just to get my gear squared away, get the whole bike serviced, like get everything packed, just get ready for this race. It's like, I don't even care. I'm not even going to set the scale up and set it on it. So I never do.
I feel that.
It had to be close to 50. I'd just throwing a number out there, though. I really don't know. It was dang heavy.
Yeah.
Heavier than anything I'd ever want to take backpacking. I mean, the shoulders definitely hurt from the pack, but that actually wasn't the worst part. The worst part on the switchbacks was the feet. Maybe it was just that I didn't wear the shoes enough beforehand. I actually bought them at the thrift store in Moab on the way down.
Oh.
But they were like nice. I was like, these things fit amazing. I'm going to wear these other than my old pair of tennis shoes I was going to wear. I wore those, and it might have been a bad decision, but my feet made it. They're still recovering. There's still some raw skin, but it worked out. I kept the shoes. I did throw the shoes in my regular pack.
So you weren't that mad at them.
Yeah.
What did you think about the Grand Canyon section? I mean, everybody has to do it whether they want to or not, but did you enjoy that section, or would you rather be riding your bike instead of carrying it through the Grand Canyon?
I enjoyed it to an extent. Of course, I'd rather be riding my bike, but it's just so unique to think about. You have to get through the Grand Canyon to do this race. Like, that is part of it. And whether you embrace that or not, like, that's part of the race, and like, just do it. It's like, yeah, of course I'd rather be pedaling my bike, and there's some trail through the Grand Canyon that would be fun on a mountain bike. And I was just like, wow, this trail would be fun to ride. But it's just part of it. It's like, figure it out, embrace it, and embrace how hard it is. And like, that's just part of getting through it.
Part of the puzzle. Puzzle.
I like it. I like it
Yeah.
in the end.
Right. Yeah. It's cool. It's unique. It's very cool you got to go across Arizona, and the Grand Canyon's in Arizona, and this is the way to get across. So it is what it is. And I, love it or hate it, I think everyone probably actually loves it. It is what that race is. So you can't separate the two.
Right.
Let's talk your highs and your lows. What was your favorite moment or section on the course, and what was the hardest or more challenging part of the course or moment?
Oh, my low has to be, there's two lows, and it's got to be that one where I just had cramps and just couldn't keep going on the lemon push and just had to make a recovery. And the next one, the Gila River, just up and down and just crazy heat. Just when is this going to end, when I was running out of solid food and I just had the flow formulas. Um, High point, probably riding from Pine Trailhead or just above it toward Mogollon Rim and hitting Flagstaff in that same day. It's probably like my biggest push in one day, but I also just felt amazing. Like I felt I was enjoying the trail. The trail was fun. Like it was so much single track. It was then in a totally different environment. You go from like desert environment to like thick forest, this thick pine forest, and it's cool out. Just everything changed so much, and I was just so stoked to be there. I'm like, I love where I am right now. Like I'm gonna hit Flag tonight. Like I love how the trail rode by Flag. That has to be the high point, just making that huge push. And it's not like there was like special scenery there. I mean, climbing up the Mogollon Rim, you're kind of looking out and you're like, everything looks green, and there's these huge hills, mountains you can see that are now green. But mostly just being in this thick forest with this trail, I could just find the flow on and just kept playing the hammer down.
Yeah. Sounds beautiful. I love it's one thing that attracts me to that area is just the diversity of, ecosystems and terrain. And it's just, it's beautiful. It's unique, challenging. It's going to be hot. It's going to be cold, technical, flowy. Like it sounds pretty epic, I can't wait to get out there. What's next for you? You mentioned Tour Divide earlier on in the conversation. I'd be interested to hear like what your thoughts are with Tour Divide, or you also mentioned you're going to be doing the Colorado Trail again. So what do you got on your radar?
Yeah, it's probably leaning toward more bikepacking focused. I guess I'm pretty stoked about the bikepacking side of things right now. Tour Divide has been on my radar for a long time. It's, as you know, there's a lot of factors that got to come together. I currently got to even throw a bike together for it. I'm not going to ride a full suspension on that. I think it'd be too tedious.
How tall are you? We'll just switch bikes.
Yeah, right.
I'll borrow yours for the AZT. You can borrow mine for the Tour Divide.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice.
I got 3 full suspension bikes you could borrow if you want.
There you go. I came to the right place.
Yeah. I got to figure a bike out. I got to build a bike. Got to figure out with work. There's a lot of things got to happen, but it's if it doesn't happen next year, the Triple Crown is going to happen the following year. I'm doing everything I can to try to make it happen next year. I really want to. But a lot of things got to come together in life. The CTR will definitely, that'll happen pretty much all the time. That's a race I would always go back to. It's still huge, but it's less of a commitment than AZT, I'll say. And I feel, I just love Colorado, and it's a trail I'll always go back to and ride. So I'll be at a lot of CTRs. That's probably my next huge goal, but if I can fit Tour Divide in before that next June, I'm totally going to try to squeeze it in there. I got a ton of work to do and a ton of research to do, but try to make it happen.
Yeah, it's a huge, just monumental challenge to even logistically get to the start line for each one of them, and then to actually finish each one is just an incredible accomplishment. And I think we could almost call this year the year of the Triple Crown. You know, there's so many people that were out for the Triple Crown this year, and quite a few completed it, which was just fucking awesome. You know, congratulations to everybody that had a great year out there doing their Triple Crowns. I'm curious for you, was the Triple Crown kind of always on your radar, or did this year with all the Triple Crown talk kind of percolate that and make you like, oh, I think I want to do that too?
Yeah. Congratulations to everybody that did the Triple Crown this year. It was amazing to see all of that go down, and people set records on the AZT at the same time, and more than just the record I did. But yeah, it's always been on my radar, and I've been telling myself for the past year it's got to happen before 2025. Now it's kind of like seeing all this happen. It's like I gotta make this happen somehow. So it's even more at the front of things to make this happen. So I'm pretty motivated to work toward it for next year. It's going to happen at some point, but a lot of things got to come together. But yeah, I will say it. Seeing everybody out there this year, being with them on course, has definitely upped my motivation to get it done.
Yeah, awesome. Well, congrats, man. Congrats on an amazing AZT. You set an FKT, which is exciting. Last year, Nate set an FKT, and so it'll be interesting. People are getting fast out there. But, you know, it was a great run. And yeah, man, I really just appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking to me about it. It's always a pleasure to kind of hear how it actually went. And yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Glad I could be part of the experience. And yeah, congratulations to everybody that was out there. It was amazing sharing the trail with all of you. And hopefully I'll see everybody at the next one in the future.
I bet you will. I hope to be able to tell some more stories. We'll see. There's so many stories coming out of the AZT and just a Triple Crown at large. So I'm hoping to snag some more interviews. But yeah, definitely appreciate you adding your voice to the list. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun, man. Get some rest, get some calories, enjoy it. And hopefully, yeah, it'll be cool to see you do the Triple Crown next year if you can take a stab at it. But if not, it'll still be there. You know, 2025, it's still going to be there.
Yep. It's happening one of these years.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, congratulations, my friend. It was good chatting with you. Take care.
Thanks, Patrick.
Now go ride your damn bike.
See you later.
All right, later, man. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And thanks and congratulations again to Alex Shultz for coming on the podcast and winning the AZT 800 and setting a new FKT. I have a feeling we're going to see his name pop up again in the near future on some of these bike pack racing events, and I'm looking forward to it. Well, I teased it at the beginning of the episode, and I teased it during today's episode, and I've been talking about it since last year, but it's for real this time. Next year, I'm going to be taking on the AZT 300, and it happened organically. I was talking to my friend Brett Stepanek, and he was planning his own ITT around the same time this coming spring to do an ITT of the 800-mile version. And so we got to talking, and I was like, man, it would be really cool to do like a group start and try to get a bunch of friends to go and do it with us, because we all agree bikepacking and even bike pack racing is better with friends. I don't have all the details yet, but here's what I can tell you. Brett and I are planning to start our ITT on April the 11th, 2024. And we are going to open up an invitation for anyone to join us, really. This has been approved by John Schilling, who is the race director for the AZT. This is not in any way an organized event by Bikes for Death, by Patrick, or by Brett, or anybody else. Brett and I are going to go ride the AZT. We're going to show up on April the 11th, and we're both going to do our rides. And if anyone out there would like to join us, we wouldn't mind the company, and it'd be cool to have some other folks out there doing it with us. More details on that to come, but I wanted to at least put the dates out there. And if anybody's interested, you can mark that on your calendar. And the other thing you can do is go to the AZT website and freshen up on the rules, freshen up on the route. And they have an FAQ section, and it has everything you need to know to be a good steward of the AZTR, and get yourself prepared if you're thinking about joining us. So I'll just make one quick note on my personal attempt for the 300 this year. You may be aware that I was planning to do an ITT in the fall of this year, but I had to make a decision essentially between doing an ITT of the Central Texas Showdown route and then hosting that event versus doing an ITT on the AZT. And so I just couldn't make it all fit essentially. And I made a choice and I went with the CTS, but hopefully that just prepares me even more for the AZT, and I'm going to be doing some other things to get ready for that. So that's going to be a big focus for me, getting ready for the AZT 300 in April next year. And of course, I'm going to be taking y'all along for the ride in one way or another. So anyway, mark it on your calendars. If you got questions, you can DM me on Instagram. You can also send me an email at bikes@bikesfordeath.com. But like I said, I don't have a lot of details right now. It's a date, it's on the calendar, and we're going to ride our damn bikes. What else do you need to know? All right, well, last week I said that next week's episode is going to be with Kurt Refsnyder, and pulled a little switcheroo on you. That happens sometimes, but no fear. Kurt is, I believe, coming on the podcast next week. So until then, if you're enjoying these episodes and you want to help us produce them, you can find out more over at patreon.com/bikesfordeath. We appreciate all the help we can get to produce this independent podcast, and we can't do it without your help. But most importantly, we thank you for being here. Until next week, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes for death. Bikes